Hi everyone, this is Cheryl and welcome to my sewing room. One of the most asked questions I get is how to put binding on a pot holder, a quilt, a table runner, a placemat. And I think many of you even shy away from it because you just don't get how to wrap that binding around those corners. And you probably think, well, why do I even need the binding? Binding gives it a finished look and it looks very professional. So in this video, I'm going to break it down step by step. So let's get started. Have your selvage edges folded together down here, and right over here is the folded edge of the fabric. Have the raw edge pulled past one of the lines on your cutting mat. Have the folded edge also on a line going straight across here. Then trim this raw edge straight. Place the ruler on the line. Take your time lining it up and then cut. Then move the ruler over 2 3/4 inches and cut your strip. If your project requires more than one strip of binding, then continue moving the ruler over every 2 3/4 inches and cut your strips. Keep the selvage edges together here and then trim them off. If your project requires more than one strip, then stitch them together. Bring front sides together and then stitch 1/4 inch seam. Then press the seam open. Fold the strip in half and then press it the full length of the strip. Before you put the binding on, make sure your fabric is on the back and all of your edges are clean and cut straight. Place the end of your binding somewhere in the middle on your project on one side. Begin pinning it 3 or 4 inches past where the end of the binding is. So my first pin is right here. So I've got a couple of pins here. Begin stitching at the first pin and back stitch a little bit. Stitch 3/8 of an inch seam down towards this end. Then stop when you're 3/8 of an inch away. Take the binding and pull it back this way to where this raw edge of the binding is even with this raw edge of your project. Hold this end down, fold the binding across this edge. Line it up and then place pins to hold. Make sure this folded edge here is even with this edge along here. After pinning, stitch 3/8 of an inch seam along here. Stop stitching when you get 3/8 of an inch away from this edge. At all of your corners, fold it as you did on this first corner here. When you come to your last corner, go ahead and fold it as you have on the other corners and place a pin in the corner to hold. Now overlap these 2 ends here, so cut a 1/2 inch overlap between the 2 ends. Then open the binding up, unfold it, and you're going to stitch these 2 ends together. Fold the pot holder in half, so that it's easier to bring the ends together. Line up those edges. Place pins to hold. And then stitch along this edge to close it up. Now I've always cut mine just a little bit longer than I think I need, so that if I need to adjust it, I still have a little bit of room to do it. So start out with about 1/4 of an inch up to a 1/2 inch seam just to make sure it fits. After stitching, unfold, finger press this seam open, fold it in half, and finish pinning it along the edge here and stitch your 3/8 of an inch seam all the way down here to where you started. So that it's easier to fold the edges of the binding over to the back, I recommend that you push against these seams, pressing them, so that they will fold over a little easier. Fold the edges up and over towards the back of your project. This next step is very important that you understand it clearly. Otherwise, you're going to stumble over your feet on this one. Your stitch line is showing here on the back. The stitch line I'm referring to is the stitch line from where you stitched your binding on. So it's showing through to the back. The folded edge of your binding strip is going to go over the top of that stitch line and past it a little bit. If you don't pull that folded edge past the stitch line, it will not work. You're going to fail, and then you're going to be upset with yourself. So I'm folding it over and pinning it. So go ahead and pin around all 4 sides. So now at your corners you have these little bumps. So take a straight pin. Press down on this side of the binding. Push it all the way over to the side here. Fold the binding over the pin and then pin it down. That's all you have to do. Take a straight pin, stick it right into the seam, and push it all the way through. And if you can see that the pin is going through the binding on the back, then you know it's in the right place. The last step is to stitch it all down, and you're going to stitch in the ditch. The ditch is where the binding and this fabric here come together. So it's that seam right there. So that's where you're going to stitch. Start in the corner and stitch right straight down to the next corner. Leave your needle in the down position when you get to the corner. Lift up your presser foot, turn your project, and continue stitching to the next corner. And do that at all of your corners until you get back to where you started. Here's what it looks like on the back, and then here it is on the front. If you need instructions on how to put the binding on with a loop to hang a pot holder, then play this video until a green screen appears and then click on the links. If you like this video, click on thumbs up and then click on share to share this video with your friends. And if you haven't subscribed yet, click on that red button down there in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. Click on the little bell and enter your email address so you receive emails about my latest video. If you're not receiving those email notifications, go to your cell phone or iPad, click on Settings, and turn notifications in the on position. This is Paul, this is Manny, this is Jamie. So glad you came to my sewing room. See you next time, and happy sewing!